Ready? Last ready? Start. Instead of subjecting the order of the trial court to the right degree of appellate scrutiny warranted in appeals against interlocutory orders, the High Court has made general and overbroad observations touching upon the malicious intention of the plaintiffs in filing the civil suit and the application below Exhibit 5 of the grant of temporary injunction. The failure of the High Court in pointing out any perversity in the order of the trial court is a glaring reminder of why the High Court must exercise their appellate jurisdiction against interlocutory orders involving the exercise of discretion of the trial court with great caution and mindfulness. High courts must not lightly set aside the decision arrived at by the trial court in exercise of its discretion unless the order of the trial court fails to satisfy the parameters as delineated by us in the preceding paragraphs. The failure to engage with these crucial aspects renders the High Court's order deficient, detracting from the objective of rendering substantive and reasoned justice. It is also pertinent to observe that immediately after the High Court set aside the order of the trial court granting interim injunction, the defendant number 3 entered into a transaction which created a third party right on the suit property. A perusal of the impugned order indicates that although a specific request was made by the plaintiffs before the High Court to stay the operation of the impugned order to enable them to file an appeal before this court, yet the request was not accepted. It is beyond our comprehension as to why such urgency was exhibited by the High Court in vacating the status quo on the suit property, more so when the suit was still pending before the trial court and the rights of the parties were yet to be crystallized. The sequence in which events have transpired in the present case best illustrates how the exercise of appellate jurisdiction by the High Court in a casual manner can have a cascading effect which only prolongs litigation and counter-serves the interest of justice. We need not say anything as regards the subsequent transfer of the suit property at this stage for the simple reason that if it has been transferred pending any proceedings, it is for the court to see whether the transaction is hit by lis pendens or not. This aspect shall be looked into by the trial court at the time when the suit is taken up for final adjudication as regards the rights of the parties. Quite often, in these types of litigations, it is sought to be argued that an injunction restraining the defendant from transferring the suit property was absolutely unnecessary as no post-suit transfer by the defendant can adversely affect the result of the suit because of the provisions of Section 52 of the TP Act, whereunder all such transfers cannot but abide by the result of the suit. It is true that the doctrine of lis pendens, as enunciated in Section 52 of the TP Act, takes care of all pendente light transfers, but it may not always be good enough to take fullest care of the plaintiff's interests vis-a-vis such a transfer. We may give one appropriate illustration of a suit for a specific performance of contract based on an agreement of sale. in a suit wherein the plaintiff prays for a specific performance, and if the defendant is not restrained from selling the property to a third party and accordingly a third party purchases the same bona fide for value without any notice of the pending litigation and spends a huge sum for the improvement thereof or for construction thereon, the equity in his favor may intervene to persuade the court to decline, in the exercise of its discretion, the equitable relief of a specific performance to the plaintiff at the trial and to award damages only in favor of the plaintiff. It must be noted that Rule 1 of Order 39 of the Code clearly provides for interim injunction restraining the alienation or sale of the suit property, and if the doctrine of lis pendens as enacted in section 52 of the TP Act was regarded to have provided all the panacea against pendente light transfers, the legislature would not have provided in Rule 1 for interim injunction restraining the transfer of suit property. Rule 1 of Order 39, in our view, clearly demonstrates that notwithstanding the rule of lis pendens in Section 52 of the TP Act, there can be occasion for the grant of injunction pendent light transfer in a fit and proper case. In the aforesaid context, we may refer to one old decision of the Calcutta High Court in Promotha Nath Roy versus Jagannath Kishore Lal Singh Dev, wherein it has been observed that a court will in may cases interfere and preserve property in a status quo during the pendency of a suit in which the rights to it are to be decided, and though the purchaser pendente light would not gain little stop.